Oh, hi everyone. It's interesting how life works out sometimes, isn't it? Dominic's not here. Jesse Lynn is out having a staycation. I'm looking outside at the beautiful weather and I'm thinking, no one's joined me. That must be a sign to go out and start enjoying some of the weather and bringing some of our belongings in from our storage container to finally get not our move, but our move back into the house done. So what I'm going to do is I wanted to start off today with, I wanted to read a chapter from Island of Knowledge. So I'll just throw this out there and maybe we can discuss it a little bit on the, hey Lynn. I'll read it in a second or two. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Looks like it's just you and me today.
Oh, really?
Well, I was just making a little speech about how Dominic's not here and Jesse Lynn's not here, and I'm looking at the beautiful weather outside, thinking maybe it's a sign that I should go and go and bring some things in from my storage container. But
it's snowing up here in Barrie.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
Really?
It's snowing all morning.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess you guys are Barrie. How far is that from Guelph?
Well, we're kind of north. We're in the snow belt up here. We get lots of snow. Like even 5 kilometers south of here, going towards Toronto, there's no snow, but Barrie always has snow.
Wow. Yeah, we're just on the outside of it here, but we still have built up snow, and a little bit of a flurry yesterday, but nothing too major.
Yeah.
So what's new and exciting with you this week, then?
Oh, I'm just chilling out, just getting back, recovering from my vacation.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Where were you guys?
I was in Mexico.
Nice. Had you been there before?
Yeah, many times. My parents live there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. How'd that happen?
They live there in the winter.
Oh, nice. Here, hold on. Maybe do we want to carry on today? We want to chat?
Well, is this going to be us? Is there nobody else coming? Do you know?
I don't know yet. I mean, it's 6 after.
Oh. Okay, well, let's give it till 10 after, and then probably close it down if nobody shows up. And I haven't been reading. Like, I have not been reading. I've got like 4 or 5 books that I am reading, but I haven't been reading any of them since I got back from vacation. So right, I'm not even on top of things. I was just coming to listen to the interesting conversation, but that might not happen if it's just me and you.
Well, we could try to create some interesting conversation. Well, what I was going to do, I wanted to read a chapter. It's a very short chapter. I got not caught in, but I was reading Island of Knowledge.
Yeah.
And there was a chapter. I think it's the second last chapter, is on mind. And I was going to read that just to see if that prompted any conversation.
Right.
You want to hear it?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. Let me get the glasses going again. Excuse me. Okay. It was Friday night, and we had gathered together again to learn. Barb, who very rarely said much during our discussion, looked over at Sid and asked, "Hey, hi, Monique. What is mind?" The mind is non-existent to anyone who has realized self. This so-called mind is only thought. Without thought, there is no mind. The knowledge of this fact is experience in direct contact with self. When this direct contact occurs, then one sees clearly. One sees truth because there are no thoughts to analyze or judge. Although it appears that an enlightened person uses his mind like anyone else, this is not so. He simply plays the game of life and acts like anyone else. The difference is he knows his acts are that of an actor, so he enjoys playing his role in life, knowing that nothing matters. But if nothing really matters, how can you enjoy yourself? This is rather difficult to explain in words. Perhaps we should try and experience it. Have you ever looked at a beautiful, breathtaking scene? At the moment you really feel the beauty, nothing really matters. You become caught up in the illusion of the world, which is a beautiful experience. At the moment you realize the scene was beautiful, you brought in thought and the beauty starts to disappear. Somewhere you are analyzing and judging the scene. You are comparing this scene with others in your past history. With all this comparison going on in your head, how can you possibly enjoy what is? Because a person living here and now, no thought, doesn't mean to say he is an introvert. On the contrary, he will be open to anyone or anything. He will be full of love and understanding. His energy level will also be full, his so-called mind sharp and clear. Why is it you sometimes ask us to think about things? Then you say, drop thought. Of course you must think about things. You know no other way. Say, for instance, I ask you to think about all the things you are searching for in yourself. Then I ask you to look deep into your so-called subconsciousness or subconscious for the answers. It is just a matter of time until you start realizing different truths about yourself. At this point of realizing truths, you can rest assured that you gave up thinking thoughts to let the truth in. It's like looking at a TV set with poor reception. The poor reception is caused by too many thoughts in the atmosphere. Now, if all thoughts drop away, the atmosphere clears, and so does your TV reception. Now, every time you get a clear reception, this gives you more knowledge, which also gives you more power to search deeper into yourself. Mary said, sometimes when I'm talking to someone, I feel guilty and frustrated that I am not really hearing what is going on. I start to condemn what I hear. Sid replied, if you listen to someone talking and disagree with what he is saying, be careful not to condemn without first looking into yourself. You may not be hearing what the other party is saying because your own hang-ups are not allowing you to listen properly. It is too big a threat to your ego. You judge to suit yourself, hearing nothing but your own thoughts. One should be very careful in such a situation. It's a contracted outlook on life with no chance of finding yourself. One should truly look at oneself to expand. Be adventurous and tread the path to the secret of heaven. This is accomplished by being open and honest with yourself. Start to see things as they are, not what you want them to be. So that was chapter 9 from Island of Knowledge about mind. Anything jump to mind there? I'm not sure you.
Well, the word meditation came to me really clear when you were, especially when, like, I used to meditate and I used to take meditation classes years ago.
Right.
And just the quieting of your mind and like not having any thoughts. I mean, you're in a different dimension. Like I feel like you're in touch with your higher self. Everything's calm. There's no thought. Like that's when I feel, for me anyway, that I'm much bigger than who I am. Like there's something else at play here. There's a bigger thing, whatever you want to call it, mind, universe, your higher self, whatever. But like it's when I was in that meditative state that I felt closest to it. And just listening to you say that is what came to mind, listening to that.
Cool, very cool. Monique, what about you?
I only got, I came into the conversation as you were reading.
Right.
And I didn't realize you were reading Island of Knowledge. And I read it, of course. I read it a while ago, so I don't even remember. But yeah.
Me too.
What was coming to my mind, though, is that, like, theoretically, we understand all that when we have less on our mind, we're going to feel clear and we're going to feel great. But the truth is that we were built to have thought, and it happens. So part of me was feeling like, yes, he's trying to help us to feel more free. But on the other hand, it also sounded to me like, do this. And part of me feels like it goes against our design, because our design is to think. I don't know. That's kind of where I was, like, that's what was going through my own mind, the judging mind.
Right, which you kind of alluded to, right? That when we're listening to other people, we often get caught up soundtrack, right?
Yep.
The judging mind. The beginning part of it is what kind of stands out for me, and I'll read it again.
Okay.
Excuse me. The mind is non-existent to anyone who has realized self. This so-called mind is only thought. Without thought, there is no mind. When the knowledge of this fact is experienced, there is direct contact with self. When this direct contact occurs, then one sees clearly. One sees truth because there are no thoughts to analyze or judge. And I think that sounds to me, doggies are being a little bit loud here. That sounds to me sort of what Lynn was suggesting, that when you drop into that space, you have access to more. You know, is kind of what I get there. Do you think it's possible to go backwards? Like, once you touch that space, do you think it's possible to lose that again? Or is that permanently now with us?
I think it's permanently with us, but we drop in and out of it.
That's what it feels like to me too, Lynn. Yeah, that once you kind of touch it, you can't untouch it.
Yeah.
and for me anyway, over the past few years, it seems that when I, you know, because everyone goes in and out, as we've said, the times I spend out of it seem to get a little bit shorter. It doesn't happen as frequently. And when it does happen, it doesn't happen with the same kind of grip that it used to. It seems a little bit easier to recognize that I've sort of slipped out of that awareness, or slipped into a different kind of awareness. Interesting stuff.
So can I ask you, when you talk about that, when you have that experience, Michael, what is happening with you? Is it that you're not engaging with your thoughts? Because you're not, like, you know, this is one of the things about the principles, is they say you don't have to sit and meditate to get to that place. You can experience it in your life. So how do you find, like, what's happening with you when that happens?
Well, what comes to mind is nothing. It's yes, I'm not trying to be evasive there, Monique, but that is kind of what came in. It's not, there's no effort. It's just like, when I feel connected, or when I'm feeling not in resistance or connected, or whatever terminology you want to use personally, it's easier, or it's very, very easy to have a thought come in and to just allow it to leave again.
Yeah.
So when I'm feeling positive, you know, or when I'm connected at a higher level of consciousness, and, you know, the fact that someone in the household left the toilet seat up doesn't bother me. And I can have the thought, oh, the toilet seat is up, but I don't have any need to investigate it any further. It's just, it becomes an observation rather than the beginnings of judgment or condemnation, right? It's just, oh, it's up. It doesn't bother me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. And I found, as soon as I really got the insight of the three principles, that was happening to me, and a lot. I was like, and then of course you're like, well, where did my anxiety go? Well, because you're not, I was like, I don't know, I wasn't engaging with it or letting it pass, or I don't know, but yeah, that was a good explanation.
You know, I run a little meetup, and something that comes up quite often is, you know, people have come from different backgrounds, and some talk about really watching their thoughts, like really paying attention to their thoughts. And to me, that sounds effortful, right? That still sounds like a doing. So personally, the way it rolls for me is that they just don't take a grip. This might be a little segue, but I had the conversation with Dickon that I posted, and in it he talks about you know, it's everything comes down to the principles, you know. So thought taking form in the moment. or thought coming to us in the moment. And anything, any attempt to describe that or to understand that becomes conceptual, right? So it's instantly outside of the principles, right? The principles are thought and mind taking form moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. And anytime we try to explain, we're now bringing in our own judgments. We're creating concepts around something. I don't know if that's additive to the conversation or not.
Because the principles in reality are just a description. Well, that's it, right? There's nothing to be done. Like, so I understand what Dickon was saying yesterday about that and what you're trying to say now. Like, I get that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a prescription. It's nothing to do. It's just a description. That's how we work. It's mm-hmm. how we experience life.
Yeah,
at the end of, right?
And something in that realization makes the rest of life easier.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm finding is like knowing where my experience is coming from, and I'm finding this more and more and more happening. And here's a perfect example. I flew back from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico on Tuesday. And I was supposed to arrive back in Toronto at 10:30 p.m. Tuesday night. But all hell broke loose. Like I missed my connection. I had to, deal with the American airline customer service to try and get me on another flight. And I wasn't able to get on another flight till like 18 hours later. Like I got home 27 hours late. And like, there's lots of different aspects to this story, like the hotel and compensation and all of it. And like, normally I would have just been freaking out, like before I knew of this understanding. And I was in it. I was okay. Didn't get angry. This is life. There's nothing I could do about it. And before I'd get angry and I'd be like, going crazy about this and say, how dare they, not compensate for me being late. And like, it ended up costing me money as well because of it. And it wasn't my fault. And when things like that happen, that's a pretty extreme example, but just anything, like I just let it happen. It doesn't have anything on me anymore. Really, I'm finding that happening more and more and more and more. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And as you can see, Monique, explaining it is still a challenge, right? It's like, I don't know, it's, in my personal experience around it, something just changed. And, every single aspect of my life is different now than it was before. So, I think in terms of, pre-principles and post-principles time now. And, as Linda's say with, that story, really, if that had happened in the past, maybe that reaction would have been different. And who knows, if you had been in a low state of consciousness or a low level of understanding in that moment, maybe you would have gone off, maybe.
Well, actually, at one point I actually said something to the customer service rep, like I said, this is ridiculous, but they didn't want to compensate.
Right.
I said, I'm going to like consider putting this on social media because this is not fair to their customers that are paying for their flight. And then after I said, I guess the only one thing I said, mm-hmm. And then I caught myself, like, going down that alley, and I could have really kept going, but I didn't. I just knew, like, who cares? Like, doesn't matter,
Yeah, it's like that first little snowball at the top of a hill.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like somehow, Monique, it just, and it, at least in my experience, I can head the snowball off easier. Like, I'm not trying to stop it halfway down the hill, and I'm not trying to stop it at the bottom of the hill. There seems to be just enough time somehow between one thought and another to head in a different direction most of the time.
Yeah.
That's not to say that, oh shit, what happened? Now I'm grumpy and I'm, but it's like,
yeah, totally.
Does that sound?
Yeah, totally. It's funny because yesterday that was the title of my podcast episode that I did. It was about thought and then the secondary thoughts, and I was talking about that in between. Whereas in the past we thought it was automatic. you know what I mean? Like, for example, with Lynn, you'd be like, you're just going there. But now, Michael, you talked about that. You realize, oh, wait, there's this like little space. Yeah.
There does seem to be a little space, and it seems like that space is opening up a little bit. Like, I used to describe it. So my thinking, I mean, I used to pride myself on my intellect, my ability to, let's sort this out. We'll get to, let's figure it out. Let's beat it to death is what we were doing. But, my thoughts, it used to come as a torrent, right? Like think, a serious tropical thunderstorm, or like a real, for us, I don't know, an ice storm, whatever it was. And so lots of drops. And now it feels like the drops are bigger and there's space in between them. So whereas thought used to come at 100 miles an hour, now it seems to be coming at 10. And it's just kind of, it's more metronome-like and less frenetic, less hyper, less, well, I mean, that's pretty much it, really.
So that's where I would describe, I know everybody has a different word for freedom or whatever, but that's what I would describe as freedom. It's not freedom from thought. You can't be free, no, because then we're not human. But it's like having that space, that's freedom.
Yeah, that sounds good. I actually quite like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It is freedom.
That, recognizing that there's room. Oh, I like that, Monique. Yeah, well done. There you go. Glad we stayed on, eh? It's people sort of ask, and maybe you get asked this as well, as around the, well, do I control my thinking? Do I watch my thinking? Do I change my thinking? And my response to that is always, look, the Dalai Lama or the holiest of holies, they all think the same way, and they all have crazy thoughts sometimes, because that's also human. The thoughts that we, that might be thoughts of jealousy or whatever they are. It's just that, they pay even less attention to them than we do, or somehow they're drawn into them even less often than we are, But has anything else showed up for anyone this past week?
Well, I had to provide because I'm going away. I think I said this before, and I'm going to be a part of a women's retreat, and the subject is on anxiety and fear and faith. And there's going to be different workshops, and I wanted to do, I'm only given an hour. So anyways, I had to come up with a description. Oh boy, that was tough. And so I was going back and forth, trying to figure out, and I'm like, this is like, it's so simple. You want to write a simple description? It's hard. We get back to how hard it is to sometimes formulate how easy it is.
Yeah, the simpler it gets, the more complicated it gets, right? Seems to be a paradox in there. So what did you come up with, though?
Oh my gosh, I can't even remember, going back and forth, but honestly, I'd have to pull it out. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know I felt good about it. Yeah, well, but I think it's because I think I remember it's because I was explaining to our pastor that it's not a how-to.
Right.
And at first she wrote at the blurb, it's not a how-to. And I said, no, don't write that, because then who's going to want to go? People who have anxiety, they would like, so just leave it, let it, just let me write what I want to write, and then, they'll see. But, even as we're just talking here and we're describing just how it works, that's the freedom. There's no how-to. It just like happens, and things fall off us. And that's what I'm hoping to get across, if I can, a little bit in that hour, or pique their interest.
Yeah, the I mean, planting seeds, not having an expectation of outcome in the conversation. Yeah, I've touched a number of people in my life with this to varying degrees. And when I first started talking about it publicly, like openly, it felt like I was coming out of the closet or something, right? I'm going to talk about this openly now. I had a little bit too much of a zeal to me.
Yeah.
I got a little evangelical about it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Come on, man.
I have the truth. I have the truth. Come listen. You'll be set free.
Yeah. So that doesn't work so well. But yeah, figuring out a way to describe it, like, you know, as I've been trying to practice my coaching skills, you know, showing up empty, just, you know, if you can show up empty, then you've got freedom to go in any direction, you know, and generally things work out that way, or seem to work out that way. But I'd love to have a nutshell, you know, what are the 3 principles? Well, here they are. And now you have them. But I don't know, if Sid couldn't figure that out, I'm not sure we will. This is actually interesting. Did you finish Encounters with an Enlightened Man at any point?
Yeah, that weekend when I was sick, I read all 3 of them that weekend.
One of the things that I wanted to ask about was, what do people think about when the psychologist and the psychiatrist arrived on the islands, right? Because you got the first 2 books that are all, he's talking about one, you know, some would argue that he went from talking about non-duality to duality. You know, when he created when the model of mind, thought, and consciousness was created, I think some might argue that there was a separation there, that he was no longer being true to the original teachings. Do you have a thought around that? Do you know enough about that?
No.
Yeah, neither do I really. I just, like, I'm sort of reading somewhere, towards the end where Linda's describing how, you know, the psychologist started to show up, and the Sid started using, you know, from one day to the next, kind of started using mind, consciousness, and thought. And the realization, I guess, had been that he wasn't reaching people the other way, that people couldn't get. Sort of speaking about it in the singular. And so I was just curious what if other people had thoughts around the contribution that the early psychologists made to it, you know, like for good or for bad. Maybe we can ask George Pransky that when he comes on.
Yeah.
Because they certainly, I mean, you know, the 70s on Salt Spring, I was there in the 80s for a bit, and it was still hippie haven. So, you know, I wonder what would have happened if they hadn't come. Like, would it have spread if it was just, you know, Salt Spring Island, essentially among a group of hippies? You know, how would it have gotten out of there? And then, you know, was the purity of the message co-opted in any way when it was put out to the masses, as it were? I don't know. That was a sort of a talking point. I mean, for me, what hit me was the realization that was the insight around thought. You know, that I truly am the one through which life is creating my reality. You know, and that you know, and thought was real. I recognized it as a paradigm, and from that point on, where I recognized it as a truth, everything changed. Yeah. So no thoughts there on the psychiatrist coming in?
I don't know. I think that, I mean, I'm grateful that they came in, because even as I hear psychologists today, like Dr. Amy and stuff, explain, it's just, I find it easier to grasp, whereas before it seemed it wasn't as easy for me to grasp. I find that they're using language that is more appropriate for me to grasp today.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, it'd be interesting to ask Linda about that too. Like, because I mean, Sid was, I mean, I think he had read more than 4 books, but he's still, you know, at grade 9 education. His language, well, whatever. I was going to say, you know, his language might have been a little bit limited in scope to try to express concepts like this. But as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that's not fair, you know, to base that on education. But yeah, the language did change. There's no doubt. And when I listened to some of the early audios, like the 1974, 5, 6, that stuff's pretty esoteric, man. Like,
where do you get those audios from? I wouldn't mind having some of them.
Oh, where do you get those from? Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, they're pirated, right? They were never released. I
I know
have,
that Elsie Spittle has all sorts of recordings. I think she's got all of them.
yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's a couple that I can share, that I sort of have an allowance to share. So
Oh, that'd be cool.
yeah. Maybe I'll put something into the group. But so those were kind of the things that I wanted to ask about today. Like I wanted to read that section on mind and then ask if anyone had thoughts about the psychiatrists coming.
I'm so grateful that they came in, because for me, that language was easier to understand, and I think it fits to the masses for today. I don't know how much I would have grasped if it was just done in the way that, Sid explained it. To this day, I still have a hard time listening to Sid, just because I don't grasp it. But then I could listen to something like Dr. Amy or somebody else, and it's like, wow, total light bulbs. And
what do you think the difference is?
I really think it's the language and just the way that she speaks. I can just totally identify with her. I don't know. I've been through her school, and I have her material, and I find it fantastic.
Well, we all resonate with different people.
Yeah.
I wonder.
And Michael Neal,
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Smart. I mean, I like the way they explain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I like them all as well. Listening to Sid is a whole different level for me, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had Hey, Arvin, I've had sort of revelations listening to everybody. Sid somehow, and maybe I'm doing a little bit of judging here. Like I'm a martial arts guy. For me, go to the source is like a mantra, right? Go to the source, go to the source, go to the source. So to me, that Scottish guy that I could barely understand on some of them is the source, right? So I find I listen. I wonder. It feels like I listen differently when I'm listening to Sid than when I'm listening to pretty much anyone else.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and that would make sense. I'm just using a religious example, but it's like somebody who says, I'm going to read the Bible, or I'm going to read a book about the Bible, and then listen to that person's perspective on it, kind of thing. But I think everybody's different.
Of course.
I've heard the same thing, Michael, that people will listen to Sid and it's like amazing, wow, that, and other people I've heard them say they don't resonate as much.
Yeah.
I think the book, The Missing Link, is like the best works that I've seen of Sid's. I mean, I haven't listened to his audios though, to be honest, but that book,
oh yeah,
every single page it speaks to me.
I gotta get that book. I don't have that book.
You must.
Okay,
yeah,
I will.
You really do. That's must reading.
Okay.
And I would really highly suggest trying to go back to. Have you listened to the Long Beach lectures?
Yes.
Little snippets of it.
So the Long Beach lectures is I find it quite accessible, right? Like the language has changed a little bit at that point. It's very, very accessible, but that might be a bridge for you to build back towards some of the earlier stuff again, Monique. But The Missing Link, I was hoping, I still have some hope that I can get Dr. Bill Pettit on here and have, it's a long shot.
Did you try?
I have reached out to him, no success yet, but I'm gonna keep trying. I'm doing his program, his mind. Oh gosh, I've forgotten what he's called it now, but the brain body connection program. I'm doing that with him, so hopefully I'll get to know him well enough.
Oh yes, you will.
I could ask him again.
Yeah.
But his thought was, Lynn, it was, how do I get the missing link on here? because it's a seminal book. I mean, you have to read The Missing Link if you follow the principles. There's no,
Oh, I gotta read that book now.
it's a must read, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like being a religious scholar and not having read the Quran or the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like that.
You know,
Doesn't Dr. Bill Pettit, didn't he in the past when he was working use that with his patients?
yeah. Well, that's sort of why it's like, well, how can we get one of Sid's books on here? Well, we can't. Hard to get the author, as Dominic pointed out. So the next best thought for me was, yeah, if we can somehow get Dr. Pettit talking about the missing link, because he seems to be the guy who studied it, who, you know, it seems to be his go-to. So the thought was, well, I'll try again. Do we have any questions for Linda?
When is that? Is that next week?
It's Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday.
I'm going to think about it before so that we come prepared. But I have like silly questions, but I don't think that they're appropriate to ask, although I'm dying to know just because I'm curious. What about Sid's kids? Are they, where are they? Are they practicing the 3 Ps? You know, those, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Is anybody else curious about that?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, me too. And I realized that it's funny, these books are stellar, but they're a little tough around a book club because they're stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, not that the book club meetings haven't been great. They certainly have been. Yeah, I have questions as well. You know, like I have sort of cultural type questions that I'm curious about. Like I said, I was on Salt Spring in the 80s, and I know what was going on in Salt Spring in the 80s. What was happening in the 70s, you know, like, but we'll see. You have a question for Linda, Arvin?
Oh, no, I don't have a question, but the book, regarding the book, I actually, it was very, toward the end of it, where Linda says no to Sid.
Right.
So she's like, you know, Sid wants her to do the book, but Linda said no, right? I realized the message was a lot more bigger than Sid. So Sid was just there to give the message, but he wasn't the message.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So it was like, oh my goodness, we don't need to actually follow anybody or anything. It's just a message we need to get in order for us to understand what is really going on. That was interesting, insightful, because, you know, before I was thinking, oh, just follow Sid, just follow, you know, the source, whatever.
Right.
As you were saying, like, you know, just goes to the source, but it's not the source. What we are pointing to, it's not Sid. It's not even, you know, what he was talking about. It's beyond whatever all the stuff he's pointing to. So I was like, holy shit, this is really makes sense now, because, you know, Linda realized on that moment she doesn't need to actually, you know, follow Sid in order for her to get the understanding, or like, you know.
Yeah, no, that's very wise of you, Arvin. You know, absolutely. Yeah, no, Sid is not source. And you know, when I speak about Sid as going to the source, I mean of his explanation of the principles, which is what resonated with me, right? Mm-hmm. But you're absolutely right. It points back. I mean, you know, so where's the source we should be looking? Right? It's us. It's here. We are the embodiment of excuse me, of that source, right? So I think you're excuse me. I think you're spot on with that, Arvin. Mm-hmm. Hang on, man. Well, do we have anything else?
I'm just thinking about her. It's such an opportunity. Like, I understand why she was apprehensive to get the psychologist on. I know she was not. She was hurt by the whole psychological system and her history with that. I wonder what she thinks about it today, and I wonder if she still. I know she moved away from the 3 Ps, but does she still kind of believe it, or I don't know. How has she kept it? How has she kept it alive? I wonder.
Well, that's an interesting question. How do you keep the spirit of the 3 principles alive, or can you? I wonder if that ties back in a little bit to what we were talking about earlier. But once it's open, or once you've touched it, you can't untouch it. I read somewhere recently that for a lot of people that have been spiritual seekers, the 3 P's is the last piece. You know, that's where the seeking stops. I know that I'm not looking anymore. You know, I actively searched for most of my life, you know, at least a fat 3/4 of it. And since finding this truth, for me, it's a truth. There's no more seeking. There's no more looking. There's no more work to do. Does anyone else share that?
Yeah.
I feel like sorry, go ahead, Arvind.
No, I was same boat as you are. You know, I was searching, and landed on 3P, and that's it. Pretty much, I didn't look back. I mean, don't look forward to anything else. Just
yeah. And I don't feel closed-minded about it. I don't feel like I've attached myself to it. It just struck such a chord that there's, you know, it just makes 100% sense that that's how it works.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how that works. It cannot work a different way.
I wonder if psychology is ever gonna, I know like Dr. Amy thinks that this paradigm is going to eventually take over psychology. I wonder if it will.
It will. I'm pretty sure it as long as people are more open to understand and at least test it out, I would say this understanding will take over psychology, because psychology is a theory, right? We just studied people who are sick and thought, okay, you know, this is how psychology works. But I don't think they studied happy people in order to understand how to be, you know.
Yeah. Are we studying the wrong people? Let's look at that. That's such a dude. Yeah, let's look at that. Let's study the happy people, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot. That's cool. Yeah. It's like Amir Karkudi has a little story that he tells when he went to interview for his job at the or his volunteer position with at the addiction center. So, well, what are your qualifications? And he says something along the lines of, well, I'm happy a lot of the time. And he's like, well, and the response was, can you start on Monday? Right? Like, I'm happy a lot of the time. How many people do you think can really say that? You know, and whatever, insert happiness for at peace, or, you know, whatever, at ease, whatever you want to call it there. But yeah, I don't know. When I look around my world, trying not to be judgmental, but I don't see too many people that are really happy, that are really living a life of ease, you know. And I know that's judgmental, and you know, maybe they are, and it just doesn't appear that way to me. But
no, it is true though, because most of the people's idea of how psychology works is outside in, right? So when you have it outside in, there is no way you could be 100% happy, because everything else is not in your control.
Yeah.
So not going to, like, pretty much if somebody don't know how this really works, it's almost impossible to be, you know, most of the time to be happy.
Isn't that so do we all agree with, like, I mean, my life was pretty, I don't want to say it was shitty, but there's a lot of challenges. No, there's lots of stuff in my life, but there were times in my previous life, in my post or pre-principles life, where I felt what I would describe as happy. Looking back on it from where I am now, no, it was an illusion. Like, it wasn't that it's just different. You know, the level of happiness that I have now is not something I experienced back then, or at the very least, I experienced it so infrequently, whereas now it's just the norm. It's like the script has flipped entirely. Does that, what's going on in there? Does that resonate for you as well, for you guys?
You know, there's so many things that's changed. Like, since I understood the principles, just as an example, it's like, one of my favorite trips I ever did in my life was when we went to Maui, and I went snorkeling and everything I saw. So we had planned on, we may still be going, but I realized after principles, there was a chance we weren't going to go. And I was like, that's okay. Whereas in the past, what? I have to go. It's amazing. I got to go. I can't miss out. What happens is, as you start to realize that your happiness is not coming from Maui, yeah, it's a beautiful place, but that's not where it's coming from. And it's the same thing with material possessions and other things where we think we're going to get, or experiences. We think that those things are going to make us happy. Everything shifts because you realize that's not the source of happiness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It manifests itself in everything, you know, or for me anyway, it's manifested itself in everything. Like how, you know, someone cuts me off, or someone steps in front of me in a lineup, or like, it's just every aspect of life is like imbued now with ease. And even if I don't feel it all the time, I still know it's there. I've got this, it's like there as a shadow all the time. No, shadow's not the right word. There as a night light all the time. Like even at the worst of times, there's a little glow that's like, no, everything is still good. No, it's crappy. No. So no, it's good. No, but I want to be crappy for a little longer. So you're like, I'm always being drawn back. It's like when I'm in a shitty place right now, I can almost feel myself choosing to stay there. You know, like there's the escape. All I have to do is go and turn left. No, I'm not ready to. I don't want to do that yet. I'm going to stay here because right now I'm enjoying it. I don't know if anyone else experiences that.
Yeah, definitely.
You
I
know,
think we romanticize the fact that, you know, we are experiencing the sadness. You know, for some reason that we are like, oh my goodness, you know, I'm doing my stories, I'm doing this sadness thingy, so I should just stick with it, blame other people, and you know, all that stuff. It's just a storyline that it's exciting. It's not like, you know, completely nothing happening. We are going through all that stuff, and we are just like, okay, you know, I recently had this too. I was a little bit of down, and I thought, okay, maybe I will just be in the sadness for a while. You know, it wasn't like, okay, I need to do the three principle and get back out of this.
right.
Listen to it and all that stuff. I was like, okay, just listen. Let's just go through the sadness, and all of a sudden, it wasn't sad anymore.
Yeah,
It's just like, you know, my romantic view of sadness is gone as soon as I realize, oh my goodness, it's just me making it up.
Yeah, my romantic attachment. I like that. I noticed the other day. I'm in the process of selling my business, and so I've been talking to Julie, you know, my partner, about it, and I would say things like, it's really exciting, you know, the business, like it's pretty much a done deal. I'm excited about this, and then I would add, but I'm really afraid. And Julie would say, well, what are you afraid of? It's like, well, nothing. So it was this weird habit. There's this weird habit still of changes happening, good, but like I still have this habit of adding that but. It's weird. It's like I say it just to maintain conversation sometimes. It's the weirdest thing. You know, yeah, really excited about selling the gym and moving forward in a new life, but I'm really terrified.
But maybe you were scared of the unknown.
Well, but I know that the unknown is not something to be scared of. You know, and I've changed careers twice. I've started businesses twice out of nothing. I know I've done this before. So it's like, it just feels like this habit. It feels like this conversational, like, convention that I'm supposed to add, oh yeah, and I'm afraid, or oh yeah, and I'm nervous. It's like, sometimes I can't leave it as, oh, I'm excited. I have to somehow follow the habit. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a weird.
Do you think there is something wrong with being happy with the business being sold?
Maybe, right? And
that's how we used to, right? It's being happy regarding something is not really seen as something normal. Like, you know, anything happens, you have to be concerned, you have to be a little bit scary, you have to be, you know, look for what's going to happen in the future. all that stuff is we learned it. We were like, that's how our parents were doing it. That's how our friends and family were doing it. So we will just do it the same way too, regardless if we know the three principles or not.
Yeah.
I still think it has to do with the unknown. Maybe we're not used to feeling at ease at first with the unknown. That's what I think. Even though you said you've had the experience of it before, think about all the other experiences that you didn't have, where it wasn't business, it was just life and it was unknown. There's a conditioning.
Well, that's sort of what I'm saying, right? It's that it is just on some level my conditioned mind adding that doubt that I don't feel I actually feel. When I look at, no, I'm not nervous about it. I'm not afraid of what's happening. It's like I use it as a conversation starter sometimes. Well, because when I've shared it with, when I've talked to people that I'm going to sell my business, and I've had it for 12 years, often the reaction is, "Oh my God, why? That's terrible." Or how could you do that after 12 years? It's your baby. So like all this, as Arvind is alluding to, all of this sort of expectations of something negative or challenging. So I don't know, maybe I'm just falling into a trap or something. But anyway, I don't know. I digress. Any questions for Linda? Any other questions for Linda?
Oh, I want to know if she was in love with Sydney.
What?
Really?
Yes.
If she was involved with Sid.
Yeah, not really involved. The book doesn't mention anything, but I was thinking, like, is she kind of fell in love with Sydney back?
Oh, I see. So the guru of worship kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's an interesting question.
At the end of the thing, she realized, oh my God, I'm more as a person as her. She's whole, and she's like, she could say no to Sid.
Oh, I see.
I'm pretty sure in 1780s, I mean, like whatever you said, it might be not just normal stuff, whatever it is.
Lynn, has anything come to mind that you want to ask?
No, but I'm going to think about it. I'm definitely going to think about it.
I just want to hear, I want to hear a little bit about, she was diagnosed, electroshock therapy and
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about it, but to me that sounds like pretty heavy duty treatment. And I'd love to sort of hear a little bit about, that from a practical aspect, what that was like, going through the system that way. And then,
I would love to hear that, Michael.
And then coming out of it the other end,
Yeah. Love that.
Because
every time she tried to tell Sid her background and her story and her history, he didn't want to hear about it.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and that must have been frustrating.
Yeah.
Right? Like here's this guy who's now dismissing everything that her life had been about. Or that's not fair to say.
Well, everything that she'd been through, right? Like
yeah.
And her mental illness or mental health, whatever you want to call it, You want to share that with someone who's like Sid, but he didn't want to hear it.
It can feel minimizing.
Yeah.
Minimizing, exactly.
Yeah,
almost invalidating,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I wouldn't think there was any intention. There is no intention to do that, right? Sid was just dismissing it because for him, it's not real. Like it was just past, not real. And I'm sure at first glance, if Linda had been through the system, then she would have been treated essentially the same way, which is let's look at your history. And then, to suddenly have it sort of fluffed off, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of want to sit back and hear her story, like hear her talk about what it was like on Salt Spring in 1974. Like just, how the group grew. Could they have done anything differently? The answer obviously is no, but, did people really get turned off by Sid for a while when he went down the guru sort of route with when he tried to fit himself into what a guru looks like? You know, the white suit that she made for him and stuff like that. Like, did that attract people, or did that push people away? Like, what I hear is that she's just a really cool woman.
Yeah, but I'm also curious, like, how are you so devoted to something and then just leave it? I understand she had some problems with some of the people. She doesn't, of course, thankfully name them or anything, but she had some issues with some of the 3P people. So I don't know what, it almost sounds like, why did she have to do that? Like, what was it that made her want to split? Was it just because they were having psychologists? Like, why?
Yeah,
why?
I need to know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, if it's a question, it's a question, right?
Yeah.
She'll answer it in whatever way she thinks is appropriate. I'm excited. Again, for me, I like the idea of, and I'm going to use the word source again. I want to hear the stories of people that were there early on. What was it like? You know, just, you know, I feel like I have a pretty good picture of, you know, Salt Spring Island and the beach and a bonfire and guitars. And I mean, I feel like I can kind of see what it was like. I want to hear it. I want to hear the words, right? But anyway, well. Do we have anything else for today? Any closing thoughts? We were all over the place today.
I wonder if she was angry at Sid after. She had anger.
You mean still as part of why the split might have happened?
Yeah, and you know, and then she just like went away from it. And
well, I don't know that she went away. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to ask her, but
yeah.
I don't know that she went away from it as much as she went away from maybe the hullabaloo around it. You know, I don't know. I have no idea.
Because she loved the community. She loved, you know, the talking about whatever he was teaching. So I'm trying to imagine, like, when you cut yourself off from that, you're also losing the community. You're not with it anymore. So what happens? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll see what happens. I don't think anything is off the table in terms of questions, and I trust that, you know, Linda is a big girl like the rest of us. If she doesn't want to answer it, she won't. You know.
You said you have something to ask her. You alluded to something like.
I do, and since I've sort of stepped back from it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I wanted to ask her about was drug use around the community. I have a pretty good idea. I mean, I have a strong suspicion based on my own time in Salt Spring, right? There's lots of drugs around. So I've always been curious about that, and I don't know if it's. Okay, so the cat's out of the bag here. I was going to ask about drug use on Salt Spring within the group, and I asked Linda if it would be okay to ask that question. She said yes, and now I'm not sure I still want to, because it potentially opens up a can of worms for other people.
What do you mean?
Well, if there was drug use, then that might color things for some people.
Oh.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, it doesn't. It makes no difference to me. The psychedelic experience is just as valid as I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, but it's a curiosity. Like, I read the books and I listen to the audio, and it's like, you know, to me, it feels like it's a very strong possibility that there was something going on as well. But, you know, so I don't know. That was what I wanted to ask. And now
That is true, though, but I don't think it would make a big difference, because, you know, there are community where pretty much, you know, it's all based on drugs and all that stuff, but, you know, who cares? Some people who wanted to hear this, they will hear it regardless if it is associated with the drugs or whatever it is, you know?
100%.
It's not
But
about it's not about what's happened, but actual message. What is it he's pointing to? That's
yeah, I agree with you 100%, Arvin. I don't think it, if the answer is yes, I don't think it takes away from the message one bit, not even a bit. Like what I was touched with, and where that came from to me doesn't matter. The fact of it is that I was touched by it and it changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could have hit my head on a doorway and had that, like, it doesn't matter where it came from for me. But in talking about it with a couple of people, it does potentially put people under a microscope.
Yeah,
right?
That is true though.
Right. So the people that were there in the early days are, you know, I don't know. I mean, I may ask it and Linda will answer however she deems fit to answer. And if she doesn't want to, she won't, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What do you think about that, Lynn?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And I think you should ask it.
Oh.
Yeah, be safe and, you know, be sure this is what happened.
I mean, that was rampant in those days. You know, West Coast too, like West Coast living it still is rampant.
Exactly. Like I said, I was there in the 80s, man. I can only imagine what it was like in the 70s.
Yeah.
To me, it was part of the time. So.
Well, and that's how I see it as well.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah, exactly.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. It was part of the times.
It fits, right? It fits. So we'll see. We'll see if I have the nerve. Hello, Kathy.
It's on me.
Hi.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. Didn't realize that I still had it on blocked. Stop.
Yeah. We're just winding up. You caught us just to say goodbye.
Oh, I thought it was starting at. I had the wrong time down. That's right. Time changed.
Uh-huh.
So that'll be 7 o'clock our time now. Arizona doesn't change time.
Yeah, right. Well, good to see
we're
you.
Now on Pacific time.
How was your holiday?
It was really good.
Nice. Nice. Good times?
Yes. Good time.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. So I think we were pretty much signing off.
So
hello.
Bye.
If you have questions for Linda, put them on the Facebook page.
Okay.
Let's put them up on the Facebook page, and then we'll see everyone on Wednesday. I'll make sure I put up a post about our time and the link and everything over the next couple of days.
Good.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.